Good morning, everyone. I hear good morning. All right, let's wake up. This is great to have this place packed out again. It's really great to see all of our members here as we wrap up the year. It's been an amazing year. I can tell you how appreciative we are as a staff here for all of you, our members. And I just love to see you in person. I know we have some joining us via Zoom. They couldn't come here in person, but we do encourage you for future meetings next year. The energy inside the room is substantial. The networking you do inside the room is important. The contact that you make with your fellow realtors is critical to your business. And we'd like to see more and more of you start showing up in person to these events, because we do believe that this is a belly to belly. This is a relationship business, and no better way to get those relationships built than in this type of environment. So thank you again, everyone, for coming today. We have a wonderful meeting, lots of great content. So we're going to get it kicked off right away. I'm going to ask one more thing from you before we get started here. Before I introduce our 2022 president, Lisa Faria. She has had an amazing year. She has given above and beyond. And can we give her a big round of applause? All right, Lisa, kick it off.
Can I take it off? Can I take it off?
Or you can pop up to that mic.
Okay, yeah. I just don't like that. Hold on. I don't like to talk behind there. I don't know why. As soon as I get behind there, I get nervous. So I'm pretty sure you all know who I am. And he just said, and I appreciate the applause. Welcome, Zoom people. I don't see your faces, but that's okay. I'm going to be quick because we do charge for that. There's a fine. Okay. Yeah. For Zoom people, it was a phone ringing in the house. I just want to thank you guys, you're all not guys, but I want to thank you because this has been an amazing year. I'm so lucky. I really had good timing because I didn't have pandemic and I didn't have recession so much, but on either sides of me is going to be an interesting year. But we are who we are because of you, because of your support, because of your coming to the association, because of your opinions, because of your contributions. We had a couple of really good goals this year. I wanted you all to take C2EX. How many of you took C2EX? Not enough of you, but my South County people did. So thank you very much. Really good program. Will's not going to let you slide on that. We'll be coming back with that. And also I really had a great goal to get 40 Silver Bear, which I actually forgot my pin in the car. Silver Bear major donors to the RAF. I was going to say Republican. No, Realtor Action Fund. And we exceeded that to 41, and that helped with our recent election. You guys know what we went through. Okay. We all worked really hard on everything on your behalf. We also wanted to include your offices with office liaisons. And if anybody has an office that doesn't have an office liaison and would like one, feel free to talk to me after. I'll tell you what that's about. It's really cool. That being said, and a big agenda that we have, I'm going to welcome our, let's see, what are you this time, Gustavo? You're the volunteer of the year, past president. I'm pretty sure you've been realtor of the year. Just all around fantastic person, Gustavo Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam President. Let's give her another round of applause. Woohoo! Yay! All right, you guys, I have the pleasure to do the Pledge of Allegiance with all of you. If you could please stand. And I don't know where our flag is at. I was looking for it earlier.
Madam President will get it. Hopefully we'll take it apart.
There it is. Okay, let's begin. I pledge of allegiance. All right, thank you, everyone.
Oh, okay. Oh, great. For those of you that contributed to the Silver Bear level and didn't get your pins, we have some. So come get one after. Okay. I'm so blessed when I can pledge to the flag, because I know there's a lot of places that you can't do such a thing and we take it for granted. But in this year, we've seen a lot of unrest and things, but we are able to pledge our flag. So I'm appreciative of that. Now, I know that we're very anxious to hear from the economist. And so I would like to bring up Oscar Wee, which, like, where are you? There you are. From California Association of Realtors. He's been there since 2003. But one of the most interesting things that I liked in his bio was you were formerly with a toy company doing trends. And I'm sure you know that realtors are a lot like children. So you must be just right on. So we're going to have you come on up and do your thing. And we're very excited to have you. Thank you so much. I don't know. You want to use that one?
Either way, it's fine.
Totally up to you.
Either way, it's fine. Thank you for having me today. And that's true. I worked for a toy company before. And the interesting thing is, at the toy company, well, I worked for Mattel before, and Mattel has, of course, a boy division and a girl division. I was in a girl division. I was actually, an analyst looking at, those teen magazines, Tiger Beats or something. I can't remember what they are. I have to go through those magazines and try to figure out, what people are following, what Britney Spears was doing at that time, what color and all that stuff. It was very interesting. And then the other interesting part of it is, don't share this with anybody, but we had to at that time go to some we went to some trade show, pretend as if we are buyers to get catalogs from other toy companies so that we will find out, what's coming out in the upcoming year. But of course, nobody's going to admit that. And I think it was a year when Harry Potter came out that the year that I left, the year before I left, was Harry Potter's the first one that came out, and we had to dress up as a wizard. So it was interesting. And of course, then I came to CAR and I started playing with more expensive toys like houses, right? So we have a presentation up, right? There you go. So let's talk about, the housing market. Now, I've been with the market for about 20, what is it? Next year actually is going to be 20 years. So I know some of you have been in the industry for maybe a little longer, or maybe, you probably have seen, the 2007 and 2008. So some of you have gone through some of those years, and we're going to talk about, what have happened in the last year and a half or so. I'm going to relay some of those to what happened back in 2007, 2008. But I can tell you that this is not 2008, 2009, or 2010. It's different. So let's get started. I have 30 minutes-ish or so, right? If 10:10, if someone can remind me later on. Okay, good. Well, I will go for an hour if that works. I do have a lot of things to talk about. So let's get started. Let's see. Am I on? Is it on? Let's see. Here we go. So let's get started. I'm going to talk about in the next an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is, about the housing market. I usually start off, with a big picture. We're going to talk about the macroeconomic stuff in the very first sections for about 15, 20 minutes or so. I think it's important to understand what's going on, with the economy, with what's going on with, the overall market. I think more people get a better understanding now about the economy, especially with inflation. I think inflation is something that we talk about almost on a daily basis now. Before the pandemic, probably not as much, but I'm going to go over the inflation stuff. I'm going to talk about the overall economy. Many of you may have heard that, we might be going into recessions. I'm going to talk about whether we are going into a recession or not. And then, of course, interest rates. Today's interest rate is what? About 6.3, 6.4, something like that. If you look at the Mortgage News Daily numbers, it actually dropped a little bit earlier today because of what happened, the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell's speech yesterday. I think it dipped a little bit. We'll talk about that also. And then, of course, we're going to transition and talk about the market. We're going to spend 15, 20 minutes to talk about the market, the state housing market, as well as the county and some of the city level data. And then at the very end, and then in the last 10, 15 minutes, we will talk about, the market outlook, what we can expect for the rest of the year and probably for 2023, maybe even 2024. So let's get started. Let's talk about the economy first. how's the economy doing right now? Anybody? You think the economy is going okay? Going up, doing okay, slowing down a little bit? Now, so there are a lot of things that we can look at, that we can talk about in terms of the economy. But, of course, the one that we want to talk about most, that people talk about, most often now, is inflation. Take a look at the slide on the left-hand side, the one that talks about inflation. You see two lines there. There is a blue line and a green line. The blue line is the headline inflation, the number that you normally hear from, the numbers that you usually hear from, the news about, what the price change, overall price change has been. Now, at some point earlier this year, and I think May or June or April or May, we actually hit a really high number at 9%. Now, just to get a better understanding, inflation number before the pandemic, before 2020, was usually at around 2%, 2.5% or so, meaning that overall price level is about 2.5% above the year before level. Now take a look at that line right there, the blue line right there. It shows a number that actually he had reached all the way up to 9% at some point in May or June. That's really high in comparison to what we saw as an average before the pandemic. And for the longest time, maybe 10 years, 15 years or so, we had been at around 2.5%. So seeing that number reached all the way up to 9% was, pretty shocking. But at the same time, if you take a look at the next 2-3 months afterwards, we are seeing some slowdown. We are seeing the number going back down to maybe about 7.7% to be exact for the last number. Actually, can you guys hear me? I'm sorry, I hasn't been. Okay, good. I hasn't been really speaking to the mic. So take a look at those numbers. The 7.7%, that's actually still very, very high, but it is definitely lower than the 9% that we've seen in the last couple of months. It is showing a trend that it's coming down now as far as inflation is concerned. But let's face it, 7.7% is still a very high number. If you look at the wage growth, for example, wages have been growing actually at a faster pace than what we had experienced before, and it has been growing maybe about 6% or so. So still, compared to the inflation number, it is still a lower number. It is still a lower number. That means people are gaining in terms of their wage by about 6%, but they're still paying more in terms of prices. So of course, they're suffering a little bit. Employees are suffering, laborers are suffering a little bit. It's coming down partly because of what happened on the chart right next to it, because energy prices are actually coming down also. Now, early part of the year, or actually at the end of last year, we thought inflation, we already knew that inflation has been flaring up, but we knew that, we thought, okay, well, we could actually control inflation a little bit because, we didn't expect what happened in February or March when we actually had the geopolitical tension between Ukraine and Russia. So of course, energy prices has gone up. Well, energy prices went up significantly for quite some time, and then it started coming back down. Take a look at that chart right there. It shows you the gas prices at the pump. Right now in Santa Clara, you guys are paying how much? $5-ish or so. Now, of course, compared to 2-3 months ago, the number has come down a little bit. In fact, for LA, for example, it has been coming down. Prices of gas prices have come down maybe for the last 3 weeks or so, 21 days or so. And it could continue to go down. But of course, we're going into the holiday season. Usually holiday season, people drive a little bit more. But right now, it is maybe about $1, $2, below that highest level. It will hopefully continue to slow down a little bit. And that helps, inflation. But inflation, as I mentioned, it is still not, it's still high. And because of it being very high, that's what the Federal Reserve needs to do. The Federal Reserve needs to actually, put some pressure on the economy to slow down the economic demand. And as such, it will actually help. Supposedly, it will help, slow down demand and actually will lead to price growth slowing down a little bit. And that's what they have been doing. Take a look at, the column right in the middle. The Federal Reserve they have been raising rates. if you look at, there are typically about, usually Federal Reserve meet about 7 times in a year. Last 6 times that they met, they actually raised rates. Rates actually has increased from the target range. If you look at the column on your right-hand side, it shows you the target range. It started off the year with a range between 0 to 0.25. Now it is at 3.75 to 4. So you can see that number. Let me hold this mic. Can I hold this mic? I got it. I think I got it. I got it. So it is a little bit higher now. It is at 3.75 to 4%. And so, and in the last 4 meetings that they met, they actually increased rates by 75 basis points each time. So that's pretty aggressive. They have not had in the past, I think 30, 40 years, they've never raised rates 75 basis points 4 times in a row. The question, of course, is what are they going to do in the upcoming meeting? And some of you may have been paying attention to the stock market. You know, the stock market fluctuates, you know, with interest rates as well. And yesterday, Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman, he made a speech yesterday, and he talked about, you know, interest rates, what the trend is going to be in the upcoming sessions and maybe in the upcoming year. He mentioned about, you know, that we need to moderate, you know, the rate hike in the upcoming sessions. And because of what he said, the stock market actually went up. I think the stock market went up by maybe about 3 or 4% yesterday. Of course, they have had speeches before, and we have seen, you know, the stock market fluctuate. It has always been, you know, volatile, you know, because of these speeches. So it's hard to say whether that is going to continue or not. But I can tell you that between now and the next meeting, which is mid of December, which is maybe about a couple of weeks from now, there will be a couple other reports that will be out. One is the Consumer Price Index report, the one that shows 7.7%. The one that I share with you, the slide that I share with you, show a 7.7%. That was the October number. They're going to have the November number released before they make a decision, and so you probably will see some numbers. And there will be other reports like the retail sales report and things like that. So we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks or so whether, you know, they are going to raise rates at a more modest pace. Now, the more modest pace would be considered 50 basis point. A lot of people actually believe that is the case. Take a look at the charts up there. I know there are a lot of bars, but those bars actually, if you look at the chart on your left-hand side, it shows you what the prediction or projection is going to be for the December meeting. There are 3 projections done at different period of time, at the end of September, at the end of October, and at the end of November. Let's take a look at the one for the November one that I just pulled, I think, yesterday. And it shows that about 70, I can't really read from there, 73, 74% believe, 74%, there's 74% chance. The prediction is there's 73 to 74% chance that the target range is going to land at 4.25 to 4.75. Am I reading it right? Okay, it's really small. I can't really see. 4.25 to 4.50. Thank you. So the target range right now is about 3.75 to 4. So that suggests to us that it is going to go up. If that, you know, if that is going to be the case, that 73 to 74% is going to be the case, then that means the Federal Reserve, they're going to raise rates by about 50 basis point. That's the range with the highest probability. And I believe that is probably going to be the case. Now, if you take a look at the chart, the other set of charts that shows a similar set of bars, but that chart is for that set of numbers. Those are for February's meeting. So after the December meeting, they're going to have another meeting next year. That is the next meeting. So what is the target range going to be at that meeting? If you look at, again, the November numbers it shows you that about 50%, there's a split of maybe about 46% in the target range between, again, what is it, 450 to 475, and then 475 to 5. So most, the probability is kind of split in between those target range. Means it means if the Federal Reserve actually raised rates by 50 basis point in December, there's a chance that there's a roughly 50% chance that they will raise it by another 25 basis point in February, but there's also another 50% chance that they may raise it by another 50 basis point. I personally believe that they are probably going to raise rates 50 basis point in December, and they're going to raise rates 50 basis point again in February. Now, after that, that's a little hard to predict. It really comes down to whether we continue to have inflation or not, or whether we're going to have some supply constraint. Now, given that, having that sort of a projection in mind, now a lot of people in the market right now, in the bond market and derivative market, they already believe that it's pretty set in stone that the December number is going to be the December Federal Reserve will raise rate by 50 basis point. Now, if they actually end up raising it a little higher, you see some volatility in the stock market, but you will also see some bounce back in interest rates. Right now, as I mentioned, yesterday, interest rates after Jerome Powell's speech, it actually came down from around 7%, or actually it was 6.66% or something like that. Now it came down to about 6.30. So there's a good chance that if at the next meeting, they actually raise rate a little higher, that number will go back up. But I believe they're probably going to raise rates by 50 basis points. The question is, what's going to happen in February? I think a lot of people have been optimistic and believe that they may actually raise rate by 25 basis point. I really think we should, think of it as, them raising it by 50 basis point instead. So, and there are reasons to believe that rates could stay up a little higher. Take a look at the chart up there. Now, the reason why we have inflation is because of supply constraint. You guys all know this. In the housing market, we don't have enough houses, and that's why prices have gone up quite significantly. It applies the same way to everything, in the market, in the economy. When we have supply chain pressure, we will continue to see some upward pressure on inflation. Take a look at the slide here. The supply chain pressure actually shows you, this is a slide that shows you a combination of all the different variables that actually could lead to more supply chain pressure. To make it easy to understand, look at the line right in the middle, where it says 0. That's the long run average. Anytime that blue line stays above that long run average, that 0, it suggests that we have more supply chain pressure. Right now, it is still above that 0 line, right? But you can also see that that line actually is coming back down. So things are actually getting a little bit better. We don't have as much supply chain pressure as before, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to translate into smaller price growth right away. It's going to take some time. And the reason why we have a smaller supply chain pressure partly is because of, maybe at a global level, some of the manufacturers, some of the factories are opening up and doing a little bit better. Now we have not as many COVID protocols as before, and things are actually getting a little bit better. If you look at, auto sales, for example, I know buying new cars is still very expensive. But they're getting better with chips, in Taiwan and some of the other places, they're manufacturing chips a little bit better. So I think, new car buys and new auto sales, they probably will get a little bit better in the upcoming year, but still prices are a little bit higher than before. Like I said, and it affects, when you have supply chain pressure, when you have higher prices, it affects a lot of different things in the economy. Take a look at this chart right here. Inflation does have an impact on consumer spending. When you're making, when consumers are gaining getting a growth in terms of wages by maybe 6%, but prices overall are increasing by 7 or 8%, obviously, you have to cut back. But take a look at this chart right here. If you look at the top section right there, it shows you retail sales retail sales, a month-to-month percent change, retail sales year over year, and then the retail sales percent change compared to the pre-pandemic level. Those three lines, if you look at the October column, the column on the far right, it shows you a positive number, 1.3, 8.3, and 22.5 or something like that. I can't remember. I mean, it's the same story is still the same, a double-digit gain, right? But if you look at the very first or second line, it shows you a positive number, an 8% or 8.3%. That's a good thing, right? It shows you that, wow, you know, on a year-over-year basis, we're actually still seeing economic growth on a positive basis. But of course, there's a caveat to it. That first three lines, they do not take into account inflation. Look at the bottom three lines. Those are the three lines that you should look at. Those are real retail sales number. And if you look at the real retail sales number on a month-to-month basis, the very first line in the last section, it shows the month-to-month percent change of a 0.8. And then the second line shows a negative number of 0.3%. So on a year-over-year basis, we actually are, you know, have been actually slowing down a little bit in terms of economic activity. But if you look at it from the positive side, for the last few months, we actually have been declining on a year-over-year basis. I think it started way back in in maybe March. If you look at the second to the bottom line, it started, you know, we started seeing a year-over-year decline at 6.3% and then 4.5 and so on and so forth, right? So on a positive note, we have been declining actually at a smaller pace. Things are actually getting a little bit better, but we are still on a year-over-year basis decline. And at the same time, we're also seeing some slowdown in job growth. Job openings, that's the graph on the left-hand side. It shows you the blue line that shows you the percent of jobs that are open, total jobs that are open in terms of, you know, the percent of total jobs that are open. Right now, it is at around 6.5%. Now, at one point, it was high. It was at around 7 or 7.5 or so. That's a high number. If you look at how it compares to the pre-pandemic level, when we had maybe about 4.5% unemployment rate, you know, we only had about 3 or 4%, 4% of the jobs being open. So the market, this suggests to us that the market is actually very, very tight because there's still a lot of open jobs. But the number is actually coming down also. You know, it's coming down from 7.5 to 6. And then look at the chart on the other side. It shows you the manufacturing. It's called the ISM and manufacturing index. Again, that number, you see some fluctuation of that line. What you need to know is whenever it goes below that 50 benchmark, that means we're actually going into we are not expending anymore. Now, if we go below that 50% line, that means we could be actually going into recession. And it looks like that line is actually going into below that 50% point. So economy definitely is slowing down. We're seeing some slowdown in the retail sales. We're seeing, you know, the manufacturing sector is actually slowing. Now, a lot of time, you know, when we see, you know, the economy actually not doing as well, you know, we panic. A lot of people think, well, that's not a good thing. But at the same time, this year, it's a little different because we were a little overheated. We have inflation at a very high level, interest rates at a very high level. People actually feel like, okay, well, things are actually going okay if we have a little bit of a slowdown. And of course, the key word is a little bit of a slowdown. If we slow down too much, that's going to be a problem. I think yesterday or the day before, earlier part of this week, some of you may have paid attention to Bank of America report. They came out with a report. They said that the economy probably will go down a little bit further than what we call soft lending. They said, you know, it's probably going to be a harder lending than, you know, we expected. It's hard to say whether that is going to be the case. I'm going to show you some additional numbers later on. But let's first take a look at the housing market. At the end of in the outlook, I'll talk a little bit more about, you know, where we might be going in the upcoming year as far as the economy is concerned. But let's talk about the housing market first. Now, inflation has an impact on the economy, as I mentioned. But of course, inflation also has an impact on the housing market. take a look at this chart. Now, what did I say earlier? Inflation, is because of high inflation, the Federal Reserve have to raise rates, right? They have to raise rates a little bit higher. And of course, when you raise rates, it affects the housing market. Take a look at this chart right here. We asked in the last 6-7 months or so, 6-7 months ago, we started asking our members. Some of you maybe have participated in the survey. We asked them whether, their buyers or sellers actually have been impacted by inflation, whether their buyers and sellers plan actually have changed. Take a look at this chart. It shows you a bunch of bars. The question is what I asked earlier, or was the question that we asked in the survey was what I said earlier, whether inflation has an impact on buyers and sellers plan. And the very first set of bars on the left-hand side, it shows you that inflation does have an impact on the buyer's plan. And you can see those numbers continue to climb up from maybe April all the way to September. It suggests that more and more members, more and more realtors could see that buyers plan have been affected by the inflation and because of interest rate, obviously. And if you look at all these other numbers, if you look at the fourth set of numbers to the left, I think it shows. It also suggests to us that inflation has an impact on sellers' plan. It's delaying sellers' plan in selling. Now, many of the sellers are also repeat buyers. They're putting their house up on the market, trying to get the money and then trade up or trade down. And of course, with high interest rates, that affects their desire to put their house up on the market as well. So inflation does have an impact, and of course, we have already seen. You guys are in the market. You guys in the industry right now. In the field. It has an impact on a lot of sales. Has a lot of impact on the mentality of buyers and sellers. Take a look at those numbers at the state level. At the state level, we're seeing sales actually dropped for October. That's the latest number that we have. We will have our November number released in about 2 weeks or so. You can see the state number actually dropped quite significantly on a year-over-year basis. If you look at the year-over-year basis, right now it is at, or in October, it was at 274,000. Just to give you some idea or something to compare with, in December of 2020, we actually, now these are seasonally adjusted number. So it reflects the annualized figure of the whole year. So at the end of 2020, rates were at maybe the average 30-year fixed rate was maybe at around 3%, maybe a little bit lower than that. In that single month or in that month, the seasonally adjusted number was 500,000. So we did drop quite a bit, compared to what we were at, about a year and a half ago. And so we have been dropping by more than 30% on a year-over-year basis in the last couple months or so. So things are actually a little rough in terms of, the sales and demand. Now, part of it is because could be attributed to, of course, affordability, interest rates rising quite a bit. But of course, at the same time, supply constraints also can be a big reason, could be a big reason. If you take a look at the price level, though, right now we're still holding okay. The median price right beneath it, it's still showing a year-over-year change of a slight 0.3%. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Compared to the peak that we had, we had a peak price in May, and the peak price that we had earlier this year for the state number, it was close to 900,000. Actually, it was 900,000. So we have been dropping from 900 to 801. But let's be realistic also. Typically, we have seasonality change between, the high at the peak of the season, like May or June, to your year end, like October. Typically, in the last 5 years, I did some calculations between May to October, we typically drop about 5% or so. So if you compare, the drop that we are experiencing this year, we dropped from 900,000 to 801. That's about, 11% or so. So if you use very simple arithmetic, 11% minus 5%. So the Market shift is probably responsible for maybe about 6% drop, so far. Now, if you look at the unsold inventory index, that's a supply, we're seeing 3.3 months of supply right now. Now, if you compare that to the pre-pandemic level, that actually is about the same, which would be considered low by historical standard. But if you, of course, compare it to, what we saw last year and the year before, then of course that number is kind of a little bit higher because we were seeing maybe 2 months of inventory, 1 month of inventory, and so on and so forth. And it affects every single price range. Take a look at the price range here. Sales actually fell by about 30-35% for every single price range from 200 to 300 to 0 to 200 300 all the way to 2 million. I know in Santa Clara most of the properties are in the millions. But you can also see, in October that affects the sales effect. They're all across the board. We're seeing, in the Bay Area, I'll show you a slide in a minute, that it dropped by about 37% for the nine county Bay Area. And what about prices? Median prices, as I showed you earlier, it increased by 0.3%, 0.4%. Take a look at, this chart right here. You can see we did have a peak at 900,000 just a few months ago, and it has been declining on a month-to-month basis. It's typical for a seasonal change, but probably typically the change is not as dramatic. So, and we will continue to see some slowdown, partly because of higher cost of borrowing, partly because of tighter inventory, but also because of, people's buyers' concern about whether it's a good time to buy or not. Now, I have a slide at the very end. I purposely leave it at the very end, obviously, so that everyone stay focused. I have a slide at the very end to show you what you may want to tell your buyers or sellers about the market. But mortgage rates is one of the reasons, as I mentioned. The cost of borrowing remain at a very high level, even though it has come down from, I know the slide actually covers up to yesterday's number. So today, as I mentioned earlier, when I was on plane, I actually saw that the number actually dipped a little bit for 30-year fixed rate from 6.6 to 6.3, as I mentioned. So it dipped a little bit. But I'm not going to count on it staying at 6.3. It probably will go back up, and fluctuate a little bit. But look at the mortgage rates right now. Mortgage rates at 6.5%. It's still high, much higher than what we had experienced last year. At one point last year, we had 2.5%, maybe 30-year fixed rate, right? And someone asked me in the past, and in some of the past outreaches, some of the outreaches that I did last couple of weeks, they asked me, when are we coming back to 3%? I'll tell you, we're not coming back to 3% for a while, at least. And you should be worried, if it comes back down to 3% in a very short period of time, that means the economy is in trouble. So now, of course, I can tell you that it probably will come down to maybe 6 or 5.5%, maybe even 5% in the next couple of years or so. But it's not going to happen right away. Take a look at the impact of more interest rates, though. When you have a 6.5%, it has an impact on buyers. Take a look at the mortgage payment. Even though we are seeing price increase on a year-over-year basis by maybe about less than 1%, the mortgage payment for just the exact same home or similar home that we bought or they bought, last year, increased in median or in mortgage payment by about 55%. Significant increase. And you can actually see it from this chart. And we actually have a dashboard on our Serio website that you can actually play with. And if you're interested later on, I can show you where it is. That dashboard allows you to actually put in, the interest rates, current interest rates, the county that you're in, and it shows you the amount of inventory we had. Your buyers can buy in that particular area. But let's take a look at the effect of interest rate right now. This chart shows you the change in mortgage payment with an incremental change in interest rates. If you compare the 3% mortgage payment for at 3%, compare that to 7%, for example, you see a significant increase. You see an increase of, 1,800, something like that. I can't read the numbers. 15 to 1,800. Let's say 15 to 1,800 per month. 1,500 times 12 that's about what, $18,000. That means compared to last year, someone needs to have an 18,000 increase of $18,000 in terms of household income in order to afford the exact same home because of increase in interest rates. Now, 18,000 is just on the service. You know, when lenders look at those numbers, it's not 18,000, it's probably like 50,000. In fact, 45,000 to be exact, actually. So with the increase in interest rates that we definitely have, you know, people definitely need to have higher household income. And for first-time buyers, it's really tough because first-time buyers, they do not have equity. Take a look at this chart. It shows you, this is a survey that we did in the second quarter of this year. It shows you the percent of first-time buyers. It hasn't dipped that much, but first-time buyers typically represents about a third of all sales. That number has dropped slightly to 33.7%, a slight dip from last year, but it's probably going to dip a little bit more in the upcoming year. If you look at the financial characteristics of first-time buyers, these are based on real sales. You can see in comparing 2021 and 2022, if you look at the second line, it shows you the median monthly mortgage payment. They did increase by about $500 every month. And if you look at the down payment, they had to put a bit more down payment, maybe by about what, close to $20,000, you know, in order to buy a similar home. That's first-time buyers. Now, repeat buyers also get affected, maybe not as much. But before we get to repeat buyers, let's take a look at, you know, the characteristics of homes for first-time buyers. Not only did they have to actually pay a higher mortgage payment and a higher down payment, but take a look at the houses that they bought. As far as the median square footage, they're buying a smaller house. 2021, they were buying a typical home of 1,450 square feet, dropped to 1,400. Take a look at the number of detached homes that they purchased. It also dropped. They're buying more condos. So they have to give something up. Now, for repeat buyers, they're a little bit better off. Many repeat buyers, they're not willing to come up with a higher mortgage payment on a monthly basis. So if you look at 2021 compared to 2022, the mortgage payment stays roughly about the same. But for repeat buyers, they had to come up with a bigger down payment in order to avoid paying a higher mortgage payment. Take a look at the difference between 2021 and 2022 in the third line for repeat buyers. They actually have to pay come up with a $50,000 more in terms of mortgage payment, in terms of down payment. Now, how did they come up with that much money? Exactly, equity. Take a look at the equity that they've gained over the years. Between 2020 and 2021, there's a significant change of about 100,000 on average or typical. So repeat buyers actually they were able to do a little bit better in terms of mortgage payment, but still, and that was of course in June. Of course, you know, in September they probably have to actually pay a higher mortgage payment also because of interest rates being a little bit higher now. Now, take a look at the supply side. I show you the demand side. Let's take a look at the supply side. Active listings. It seems like things are actually improving. If you look at the overall active listings, right? Inventory level, active listing have been increasing by 30, 40, 50%. In fact, you know, it increased by about 60% in the last couple months or so. But did we really have increase in active listings? If you look at the new active listings, we actually have a dip. If you look at those green bars, it shows you in the last couple months, we actually dipped in terms of new active listings by maybe 15% or so. So the higher level of active listings is basically because of pullback in demand and sales demand, not so much because of new active listings being added in the system. Now, it could be, you can argue that, you know, sellers may be reluctant to put their house up in the market because they're not buying themselves because they're concerned about high interest rates. You know, that could be it too. But, you know, we still have that fundamental issue about supply constraint. And of course, with a little bit more supply available on the service, the market is not as competitive. The market here shows that, you know, as far as the this chart shows you the percent of sales with a price above asking price. That number dropped from a 73% just a few months ago to about 27%, meaning only 26%, a quarter of the listings were sold at a price above asking price. And if you look at the number of properties being reduced in terms of price, it actually increased to 46% or so. So about 45 to 50% of the sales actually drop in price. Sellers are being a little bit more realistic in terms of their price, what they need to price their market on their properties. Now let's take a look at some of the county stuff. I have the Bay Area, the Bay Area region with the nine counties in the Bay Area. In this particular slide, it shows you that the region itself actually dropped by about 38% or so, 37% or so, a little bit higher than the state as a whole. If you look at the year-to-date number, meaning the first 10 months, we actually dropped about 23-24%. Price-wise, though, the Bay Area actually is one of the major regions that actually dipped slightly on a year-over-year basis. Part of it is probably because in the Bay Area, we actually had a slightly higher increase in price in the past couple of years compared to Southern California and to Central Valley. So it actually started dipping slightly or a little earlier than some of the other regions. Some of the other regions are probably going to follow, though, in the upcoming months. Now, here are in the next few slides. These are slides that you actually can get from the Sierra website as well. These are one pages that you can download. If you go to the Sierra website, go to Housing Market Overview, you can actually download the county numbers as well as the city level numbers that you can pass on to your clients. They exist in different formats. I have it in PowerPoint format, but we also have one pager. You also can use it for Instagram. Story is very similar. At the county level as well as the city level, it shows that sales actually continue to slow down. As you can see, the home sales actually drop about 40% for the county as a whole. I believe in November, now we don't have, these are October number. November numbers probably will show a similar trend, maybe dropping by about 30% or so. Now, with the interest rate actually improving in the last couple of weeks or so, I think December may look a little bit better. I can't promise you that, but it's probably going to look a little bit better. Part of it is, if you look at it, and I'll show you the slide, you see a slide on mortgage applications that actually start improving slightly on a month-to-month basis. And you see that. But the story is pretty much the same at the county level as well as at the city level. If you look at Gilroy, the number actually dipped in terms of sales. Price actually stays a little bit above last year's level, still pretty decent. I think Morgan Hill is the only city that I have a decline in price in October, but it could fluctuate next month. It could actually come back up. Active listing, though, take a look at active listings. The overall active listings continue to increase, but again, these are not new active listings. These are overall active listings. So it dipped partly because of the pullback in demand. San Jose inched up slightly compared to last year in terms of price, but sales actually dropped also, and active listings actually increased by 80%. And Sunnyvale, I only have a few of them. I know I may not have covered, may not have all the slides for all the cities that you would like to look at, but definitely check out our website. It should have a lot of other cities that you might be interested in. Now, so let's take a look at the outlook. Hopefully I'm okay with time. Okay, good. So what are we looking at in the next few months or so in the upcoming year? It still comes down to inflation. Take a look at this chart. I have three charts there. The one on the left-hand side, it shows the projection for CPI, Consumer Price Index. Now, I said earlier, in April or May, we had a 9% inflation number. It started dipping to 7.7%, but when are we going to go back to 2%, 2.5%? Well, based on some projection, based on this, these are projections from UCLA. Based on the projections, it looks like if you look at the CPI number, it looks like we will continue to decline in terms of price, in terms of the price level or inflation, but we're not going to go back to 2% or 2.5% for a while. If you look at 2024, we at the end of 2024, those are quarterly numbers. At the end of 2024, we actually we will get to maybe 3.1%, but 2.5%, maybe 2025. So it's going to be a while. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that interest rates are going to continue to stay at a very, very high level. I do believe that interest rates probably will start, slowing down a little bit. I'll give you a little bit more of my, personal insight. But if you take a look at the Fed funds rate, this is one way to tell. The chart on the right-hand side, that's called a dot plot. That's the Federal Reserve dot plot. What it shows is you see a lot of numbers and you see a lot of dots right there, right? Each column may have maybe about 18 dots or so. Those dots are the vote of individual Federal Reserve member on what they believe the year-end target range, the Fed funds rate is going to be at the year end. So they collect all those numbers, they put it together, and you can see the average, for each column. So we have 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, and so on. So in 2022, in September, they believe the year-end number is going to lie right at around 4.5 or 4.4 or so. But obviously, that's September's number. Right now, the number is probably a little higher at 4.75-ish or so. But the story is, if you look at 2023, they do believe that year end of 2023, the number will be a little bit higher. This suggests to us that, the Federal Reserve officials, they also believe that they will raise a Fed funds rate in 2023. My speculation is they're going to raise rates, as I mentioned, by 50 basis points in February, maybe another 50 basis point or 25 basis point in the meeting after that. From that point on, they probably will keep the rates at the same level, and they may actually start lowering the Fed funds rate maybe in July or August or so, depending on whether the economy is slowing down or not. So now, of course, the market knows that as well. The people in the bond market knows that as well, and they usually predict it, a few months ahead. My prediction is interest rates right now, it is at 6.3 or 4, probably will bounce back up to close to 7%. I think it's going to peak in maybe April or so. Whether it is 7.25 or it doesn't look like it's going to get to 7.5 now, but it may actually hit 7.25 to reach the peak. And then from that point, it start leveling off, and it may actually even come down towards the end of the year. My guess is it's probably not going to come down so fast until maybe about July or August or so. But things changed, on a, things change on a monthly basis, weekly basis or so. But I still believe that, the peak is probably going to peak interest rates is probably going to be in around April or so. And from that point on, 2024, 2025, you can see the dot plot suggests that they will actually lower Fed funds rate, which will lead to lower interest rates. Now, what about, okay, interest rate is one part of the economic variable that we need to pay attention to. But what about, the risk of going into recession? In the first and second quarter of this year, we actually had 2 consecutive quarters of decline in economic activity. The first and the second quarter, not a whole lot, but by a little bit. I think the first quarter by a drop of 1.6%, and then follow up by another 0.5 or 0.6%. Now in the third quarter, the one that we just had from July through September, we actually had an increase of 2.6%. So early part of the year, people said, we actually have 2 back-to-back, a drop in economic activity. We had a recession, because technical definition is when you have 2 an unofficial technical definition is when you have back-to-back drop in economic activity, it could be considered an economic recession. But of course, you have to look at all the other things like labor market and things like that. And job market was actually very, very strong. So I never thought that that was a recession. But are we going into recessions in the upcoming year? I can tell you that we most likely will hit a soft patch in the first and second quarter of next year in 2023. And are we actually going to dip and will be considered recessions? Chances are it's likely. It's likely we'll have one. We're going to have a soft one, though. I would consider that a soft recessions in the first and second quarter, maybe even third quarter. But it's going to be slow. It's not going to be a significant hit. Now, why do I believe that is the case? Part of it is because of the sentiment. If you look at the business sentiment on the chart right here, it shows you how CEO think about what they believe the economy is going to be like. If you look at those bar charts on the right hand side, 85% in the beginning of the fourth quarter, meaning maybe in October, they did a survey. 85% believe that we're going to have a soft recessions, a mild recession. Now that's an increase from 81% in the third quarter. So more of them believe that that is going to happen. Now, why do I rely on this chart? Why do I look at those numbers? Well, they are business leaders. If they believe that things are actually going to turn sour, they're going to cut back. And you already seen it. You already seen what Facebook cutting people, Twitter is cutting people. That's a different story. That's a different story. I don't know whether that is recessions related or not, but they're cutting people. And other companies are laying people off too. So it's going to have an impact. It's going to have an impact. And so that's why, I think we are going to see some soft landing, but some other economists may have a different belief that it's going to be a little bit harder. Now, here's our CR's predictions. Our outlook is in 2022, we will still see a slight improvement. If you look at the very first line, the top line suggests that we have a 0.9% increase in GDP. But we are going to see a negative number in 2023, a negative 0.5%. And in terms of unemployment, it is going to go down to 3.7 in 2022, and then it's going to go up to 4.5%, 4.4% in 2023. Now, 4.4% is still not a bad number, but it is a higher number than what we are seeing in 2022. But take a look at the CPI number. The CPI number is the inflation number. That number actually is going to drop from 8% this year. We will have an average for the whole year of 8%. It's going to drop to 4.4%. Now, it could be actually a little bit higher than that right now. The way it's going right now, it may look like that it's going to be a little bit higher than that. But of course, 4.4% is still far above the 2.5 or 2% that I mentioned earlier. Now, for California, for the California economy, we're doing a little bit better. Part of it is because of, of course, in California, we have a tech sector, but also California is the region where we have people traveling to California to visit for tourism, for tourist activities and things like that. And we'll probably have a better outlook because things are actually opening up a little bit. Hopefully, of course, we're not going to get another COVID. Of course, during this period of time between the during the holiday season, we see some increase in cases. I think we're seeing some in LA, but it's not as severe as what we saw last year. So hopefully things are not going to be as bad. Now, this is the chart that I mentioned earlier. In terms of sales, I think things are actually going to slow down in November. It may pick up in December a little bit, but I'm not going to count on it being very, very strong. If you look at those, the chart on the left-hand side, it shows you the year-to-year percent change in pending sales. Pending sales are open escrow sales. In October, we had open escrow sales actually down by about 50%. So that suggests that November sales, many of you already know, it actually, closed sales in November were actually down quite a bit. But what about the mortgage applications? Mortgage applications shows you what's going to happen maybe 30 days from now. Mortgage applications actually increased on a month-to-month basis. I know it's really hard to look at, but the orange bars, The orange bar on the right, on the graph on the right-hand side, it shows you that it's actually take up a little bit from the previous week. And this one actually, it was last week or the week before's number. Last week's number actually increased a little bit more. So because of the drop in interest rates, I think we are going to see a slightly better month for December compared to November. It will not be, of course, we will still see a year-over-year drop. That's for sure, but maybe not as much as, you know, what we experienced in October and November. Give me 1 second. I know I put in those animation. Here we go. Oh, no, not that. Okay, well, that's just demand side. What about the supply side? Supply side remain really, really tight. You know, if you look at these two charts, one chart is about the supply constraint or housing permits, how many homes are being built. If you look at those supply, if you look at, you know, the dotted line, that's the amount of, that's the number of homes that we need in order to fulfill all the housing demand, whether it be multifamily or single family. Take a look at how many we have been building. The blue bar suggests that we have been building below that dotted line for quite some time. And we'll probably will continue to do so because builders probably are concerned about the market as well. They're not going to build any single family homes because you know, if they know that, you know, they see that, you know, there is some pullback in demand. What they end up doing probably will end up building more multifamily. The rental market is booming. And continue to stay at what increased by rent, continue to increase by maybe high single digit, 8 or 9%. So they might be continue to build some multifamily. And what about the existing home sale, supply? Are people putting up their house on the market? Take a look at that chart on the right-hand side. It shows that people are staying in their home for a little longer, still about 10 years or so. And with the rates being at a high level, 6.5%, 7%, there's something called the lock-in effect. You might have heard of it. That's the term that we used back in 2008, 2009. People actually, many people refinance at 3% or so, and now rates are at 6.5%. Even if they want to buy, they may not want to, you know, give up their low rates. So many people may actually hold off on putting their house up on the market, and that's why we're seeing supply actually at a constrained level. Now, some of you may ask, what about foreclosures? Are we going to see a lot of foreclosures? I've shown this chart before, but I update it on a quarterly basis. Back in 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, some of you may have experienced, you know, what we experienced back then. There were a lot of foreclosures. Back then, and some of you may remember, before 2007, on the MLS, there's no such column as REO or short sale. There's no such term because people just put it in their miscellaneous comment, you know, as a short sale, if it is a short sale. But then they created, you know, those criteria, those status. And back in 2008, back in 2009, 2010, the percent of sales that were considered foreclosed properties or REO, it made up maybe about 40–50% of all sales. And there were a lot of properties underwater. Now take a look at those numbers on the chart on the map there. On the chart there for California, we have how much? We have about 0.3. I know it's really hard to see. I can't see. 0.6%. 0.6%, right? 0.6% of the mortgages were underwater in the third quarter, or in the third quarter. Guess what the percent was back in 2008, 2009? It was about 30% for California. So if we actually did not have, if we currently don't have that many properties underwater or negative equity, then most likely we're not going to see all those properties, you know, flooding onto the market. And plus, we have buyers are actually doing their due diligence. They're actually a little bit more responsible compared to 15 years ago. Take a look at 2006, the column 2006. the number of people who put down 0% down payment, 21%, 22%. Take a look at the percentage that put down 0% down payment in the last few years. Now, 2020, we had 8.5%, but in the last couple of years, 2% and 3%. So they're putting down a bit more compared to before. And take a look at, the risky loans, quote unquote, risky loans, adjustable rate mortgage and second mortgage. A lot of people actually used those back then. But if you actually can secure a loan at 2.5% or 3% in 2021, then you probably don't need those, right? So take a look at the percentage. Back in 2006, we had 44% actually had second mortgage. Today, we had 2%. So that's why, people have more skin in this game. And 2 more slides, 3 actually. So here's the outlook for 2022 and 2023. Now, I'm not going to lie, we are going to have a tough, market. Market is shifting. It will continue to shift. In terms of sales, we're actually will be down by the end of the year by 19% for 2022. But for 2023, we will still continue to go down by about 7% or so. As I mentioned earlier, interest rates probably will start slowing down maybe in the second half of next year. Prices probably will go down though. Now, I said earlier that because of seasonality, home prices actually drop, from May to October. It will continue to drop a little bit because the next few months they're considered, slow season as well. So you may actually see, some of you probably have seen, some economists may have made some predictions. Oh, the market is going to drop by 20% or so. But they did not specify exactly what that means. 20%, probably what they meant was from peak to trough. Peak, as I mentioned, was 900,000 earlier in May for California. So we already dropped 11%. We didn't feel like that it's dropped the 11%, but part of it is because of seasonality. So we may actually see another, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8% drop between now and, what we consider trough. So on a year-over-year basis, though, we believe, based on our projections, we believe that we are going to see a drop on a year-over-year basis by about 8 or 9%. And I think we're probably going to see some leveling off at the end of next year. Now, of course, many of you ask, some of you ask, questions like this about, how do we actually, before we do that, I actually skipped this. This is the time where we actually need, a lot of buyers and sellers actually need a lot of help from us because they are seeing the market being fluctuated. They don't know how to actually, some of the information that are occurring in the market about the volatility of the market, about, different types of loans and things like that. They're not familiar with the market conditions. And so they need, our helps. Realtors have the expertise of what's going on with the market. They need people, we can actually help them negotiate prices. We can actually help them figure out, what the price fluctuation is going to be in the upcoming year. So this is a time that we can be, the trusted advisors. And some of you may have the question of, may have a question from your buyers, whether it is a good time to buy or sell. How do we convince the buyers and sellers to come back to the market? Typically, I would tell people there's no one size fits all. Take a look at, this chart. For different buyers, you may have a different answers. For sellers, for example, for sellers who may not need to buy, but they want to take advantage of the market, you can tell them that, the market still has some equity. You may actually want to sell right now to cash in or to cash out. For repeat buyers, they may want to take advantage of Prop 19, if they're 55 or older. For investor buyers, you have the rental market actually booming. It might be a good time for them to buy right now to, diversify their portfolio. For all cash buyers who want to take advantage of the lowest price, they have to wait until next year then. There's nothing I can tell them, to hold off. But these are some of the answers, and you guys probably have better answers. Now I'm going to close out with this concluding remarks. The housing market is shifting, we're going to see some slowdown in demand. Prices are probably going to soften up a little bit in the upcoming year, but it's probably not going to soften up as much because supply remains an issue. We will have a fundamental issue in supply. Now let's take a look at rates. Rates are probably going to peak, as I mentioned, in about April, May or so, and then it's going to slow down a little bit. I'm not going to say it's going to drop right away. It's probably going to level off before slowing down a little bit. And buyers and sellers, again, they need your help. And this is the time to show your expertise. And remember, we're not here for the short term. We're here for the long haul. So, this is the time to build a relationship with your buyers and sellers and make them believe that you're the trusted advisor. With that, I'm going to close out and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Does anyone else feel like Jody should have had a Bloody Mary bar for us today? Huh? What happened on that one, Jody? Didn't look at the list first. But in actuality, I really appreciate what he said towards the end, which is we have to hone our skills, and that's what the association's here for. We're going to have education for you. We're going to bring panels. We're going to bring as much education and networking, et cetera, so that we can be the trusted advisor, because you all here, that's what you are. Okay, so we're going to still be very successful. Now I forgot my paper. Bear with me, I'm sorry. Okay, yes, we have some super exciting news in this front that is very timely, and I'm going to bring Anna Lopez up from the foundation. She's our chair to talk about it.
Good morning, everyone. How are you guys? Wasn't that some great news from NAR? I mean, thank you so much. We needed that. Oh, I'm sorry, CAR. I just promoted you. Anyways, Lisa, thank you for having us. So this is the time of giving, isn't it? And on your desk, there's a wonderful flyer about the down payment assistant that's the foundation, the Santa Clara Realtor Foundation, just finished launching, and we're going to talk a little bit in depth. But before we talk about it, I want to say thank you to so many that has been working with it. And this down payment assistant couldn't happen without the collaboration of our government affairs at SCORE. So hands together for Tim Bobin, who is no longer here, but we have Gina is going to take the helm for that. But he started this with CAR for the actual grant, and we received a $50,000 grant for this down payment, and our foundation did fundraising and also matched another 50. So talking about affordable housing is so important because this is where we're at, right? Did you guys know that the area median income for Santa Clara County for a family of 4, which is considered low income, it's $168,500. That's low income, guys. That's 100%. So for an individual, just one person, it's $117,000. I mean, everywhere else, that's top 10%, but not here. So this is so important for us to spread the word. And I need your help. And I need your help to take a picture of this QR code. It's going to send you to our website link. And you can forward it to all of your clients or will-be clients, because here's the down payment assistance grant. Your borrowers or clients can apply up to $10,000, and it's a grant. There's no lien on it. It is free for them, and it's going to help for their down payment. A couple of notes that you have to know when they do start this process, that they should really go into our website, because there's 6 areas that we need for them to understand to be able to submit an intake form. We're getting a third-party help, which is NID, Housing Counseling Agency, that is helping us to approve them. And technically, there's 5 things. Buyer must be first-time home buyer. They can't have any type of ownership, whether it's on title or they're on the loan for the last 3 years. That's how we define first-time home buyers. The second is their buyer, the income must be no more than 100% area median income. And just that member family for 168,500. Buyer must be currently in contract. This is a very unique way because normally any down payment assistance is for pre-approval. But because we really want to get this money out now, if they are in contract, and you should talk to your clients prior to this, once they're in contract, they can start to do the intake form. If they're not in contract and they're doing a to be determined, our NID third party will let them know that please resubmit again for the intake once they're in contract. We're hoping that you guys are all putting a 30-day contract as a minimum. I do have a special announcement later about that, but also property must be in Santa Clara County, and they must be an active member of SCORE. So please be sure that they need to be an active member of SCORE. And that's only going to help all of us together to promote, right? So those are the very important area. There is a wonderful website, and I got to say thank you to Max Amel and her team to be able to put this marketing piece together, but also to launch it for us. Great site with information, with a lot of FAQs. There's a little button they can push if they have any questions on any of the programs. One of our foundation members will be getting back to them and answering it to them. So therefore, we're hoping to have a lot more of this in 2023. This is just the beginning, guys. It is so great to give. And with that being said, I do want to say thank you to my very hardworking foundation board members. And for those who are here, please stand up. I know I have Vince, our co-chair and our chair 2023. I have Kevin Barrett. I have wonderful Therese. I'm like, totally forgot her name. We have Dawn, we have Ramsey here, and I know we have some on Zoom out there, but without the help and without their work behind this, we have DAP committee that work really hard. And I want to say a special mention to Emma Big, who is a big contributor to this, so that she gave us some leadway on it. But overall, the last person I want to thank is you. It's your funds that you checked mark. I want to give 30, 40, or even if you want to, $100 towards the foundation. It goes to this type of activities. We're going to have a lot more fundraising because this is good. Doesn't it feel good to give? Right? Especially in this time. And with that being said, yesterday, we got our very first $10,000 grant approved from NID. And I got to tell you the story behind it. So we launched on November 17th, right? November 18th, we got a submission. This person followed through with everything from in contract, check marked. And today we're getting that check and hand it off to title. Guys, that's 12 days. Woo, I gotta say. Lots of hard work between NID and just everyone that was involved. And I'm so proud to say we do have the realtor that announced this to their client. I want to have Xavier Williams stand up, please. Xavier and his clients going to give a phenomenal testimonials on our website and as well as social media. But to know that he really wanted to make sure they got all the information and really worked with us and getting this done. Xavier company is the Bay Realty and Home Loans. So we want to thank him for that. And just to give you an update, as of today, we have 10 intake forms already. 2 are duplicates. And so out of those 8 that technically they're real, 3 of them were in contract. So there's a lot to learn. We're going to have some ebb and flows and, you know, smooth the process because this is our first down payment grant and there's so much more coming. So I'm just so excited. So thank you to all of you. And I hope out there in Zoom, spread the word and start to give. Thank you so much.
Okay, so you all don't know what it took to get this program launched. Okay, you really don't. I don't even know, and I'm the president. I've heard about it, but I know that Anna and her exec team Vince, I do feel sorry for you to have to fill these shoes. But I thank you for being there. And the foundation board has just done a monumental job getting this done. And I'm super excited. And we want to give Anna a big round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm sorry, do we have a question? Yes? So the county itself, they do, that is for Empower from the Housing Trust. And this can go hand in hand with it as well. So this, as long as the lender and the other down payment assistant allows up to this 10,000, because there's no attachment to it. So you just got to make sure your lender and the other down payment assistant that you want to pair with is okay with it. Great question. Any other? Yes.
Give us 1 second. We're gonna give the mic around so that those on Zoom can hear.
Okay.
Okay, so where they can't have a house within the last 3 years. So if you have a husband and a wife and the wife had a house out of state that she had purchased for her brother or something, and she goes and sells it, is that then disqualifies them because the wife did have something? Or
It will be, this is really made for affordable housing, and all down payment assistant is you shouldn't have any attachment. And we're going to be asking whether they're on the loan or not. You know, we're going to be asking, have you owned a house before?
okay, we probably are one of those applications. So that's probably going to disqualify our person then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she did, yeah, it was something, it was a very unusual situation. She had to buy the house for the brother. And so she ended up being on title. So we were one of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll take 2 more questions because I know we are in time limit, but by all means, guys, send them back to us. There's a website and we'll get it to you.
Good morning. This is so exciting. I was wondering if you're going to put a cap on how many grants you approve each year. And I was also wondering whether this program will run year to year or if there's some end in sight.
Great question, Jen. So right now, there isn't a cap, but there is funds cap. We only have $100,000, guys. We will be doing a lot of fundraising for 2023. So every dollar counts. We're going to push for it. Emma and our fundraising committee is going to go out there and apply for NAR grants, CAR grants, and enterprise grants. So that's our job. So we would like to continue with this, but we need your help. So when we call in and say, please can come and help us, this is all good for everyone. It's a win-win. And yep.
So if you have 100,000, so it's basically, there's going to be 10 applicants that will take advantage of it.
Correct. So it's up to 10,000. If someone only needs 5,000, that's up to them. It's what they ask for and we'll give. But you know, it's not a lot, right, guys? And we already have like 8 applicants out of 3. It's already here. So we have a lot of work for Jody and team is gonna work with our foundation board. So thanks again, guys. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Oops. Do we have Mark on Zoom? Yes, because I don't see him. Mark, are you there? Mark Bessemer from MLS is going to give us an update.
There we go. Have me on mute. Morning, Lisa.
Good morning.
Hey, hi,
We have a
everybody. Thank
video?
you for
Or no?
what's that?
Oh, I was just wondering if, there we go. Okay, you weren't on there for a minute.
Oh,
There's
okay.
Mark. Thank you, Mark.
I'm here. Let me jump over. I've got some slides to show
Do
everybody.
you have volume? Can you add some volume?
Let's see. I
Hey.
think they'd
Whoa,
have to do it
Now-
from your side, I think.
no, we got it. We're good.
Nice. Okay, so let me do a share here. See my screen now, looks like. Hey, just want to give everybody sort of the update of what's going on at the MLS these days. Certainly you have seen, probably the biggest thing that the bigger additions to the toolkit for you. Now, remember, no additional charge. You don't have to, nothing to pay for extra or sign up for. You just get it inside your listing management tool. And that's the new Aculus disclosure tool, document management, that kind of thing. And Align showing management tools already built in. We've got the links for it at the pro support site, or you can always just give us a call at the call center, or feedback at mlslistings.com. I'm going to show that again at the end of my presentation, feedback at mlslistings.com. Working over to the next thing, I do want to talk about the new Pro dashboard because, you know, it's available now. But it's really, we're going to get closer and closer next year to jettisoning the old dashboard and just having the new one. So we've been running them parallel to each other this whole year. But know that, hey, all the new stuff we're bringing out, all the new information, all the new links, they only go onto the new Pro dashboard. So there's going to be at some point where, you know, the parity is so far off between the two because all the new stuff goes on the new dashboard that we're going to have to make that change. I think, you know, the biggest thing, as Dave Wetzel, our CEO, has been talking about, is we've had that old Pro dashboard for a long time. That's like that old classic car you got in the garage and you just love it, right? And we were able to strap some seat belts onto it for you, but now you're asking for, you know, the airbag system. Well, that old Pro dashboard just won't be able to handle that airbag system anymore. So all the new stuff going on to the new page. If you're looking to get started with it, I put that other link in there for, let's see, for on the old Pro dashboard, there's a big banner right on top. Click that. It'll get you lined up. Know that it's 100% customizable. You decide what cities to see the data on right when you click in. That's a big difference from the old system where you had to, you know, you logged in and all we gave you was a big sheet full of buttons to push. Now we deliver you customized data right when you need it for the cities you need it for, and you can have as many cities as you want in a lot of different report types. So, hey, give us a call, check in with us, drop us an email if you want some more help getting yours set up. We're happy to have you, one of my trainers, you know, get in touch with you on Zoom and set you up there. Hey, and speaking of training, we've really made a big adaptation to the training program for 2023. You're already seeing it in place, and it involves, you know, most folks are going to the videos now. They love to learn on the videos on their time. They can rewatch it over and over and over again, but you always seem to have, you know, that one question. I just got that one more thing I need to know. That's what all these workshops, every week, 2 times a day, there's a workshop available to you. We've spread them out during the day. It used to just be, you know, we trained at 10 o'clock in the morning and we trained at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, now you got 9 a.m. classes. You got 3 o'clock classes. There's one at noon sometimes, so you can have a sandwich and join us, you know, and ask that one question. We're really enjoying having the veterans back in the training room again, that virtual training room again, because you veterans, you know, most of the tool, you've worked in it for so many years, but you want to make that one addition to your display. You want that one column and matrix. How do I do that? But you don't want to spend 90 minutes with us. This new workshop program allows you to come in, get your question answered, and move on with your day, right? So matrix, listing management, how to work CMAs, realist tax, statistics, mobile, you name it, we've got a workshop available for you, and it's all about getting the answers you need and then allowing you to get on with your day, as you say. So old Pro dashboard, take a look at the top upper right-hand corner. New Pro dashboard, take a look, upper right-hand corner. That's where you'll find that Pro support button. The Pro support button then takes you over to that live webinar tag, which will send you over to get into the calendar, choose your class. Feedback at mlslistings.com. That's where all the new ideas for the additions to listing management have come from. It's where new ideas about, you know, how new policies or new rules get laid down. And then certainly if you got any questions or you need just a little extra special training, a little one-on-one time, happy to help you out. That's why we're here. Feedback at mlslistings.com. And Lisa, that's it for me.
Thank you, Mark.
Most welcome.
Nice graphics. So I don't know if any of you are like me, but when there's a choice between remaining with the old or going to the new, I keep pushing I'll stay with the old one until the day before it's expiring. And then I stress out. Yeah. And I think we have it on zip forms right now. I keep hitting that classic and now we have MLS. So it's all right. We'll get through it. And it looks like it's going to be great. Now we're going to bring Gina Zari, our government affairs director, up, and she's going to have some great news for us because that's the way she rolls.
Hello, can you hear me? I prefer good news over bad news, generally speaking. So has anybody gotten a text from me that says San Jose Realtors? The people, you guys have gotten it? Okay, good. All right, then you're paying attention, right? Has anybody said stop? No. Okay, good. All right. I'm Gina Zari, Government Affairs Director at SCORE, and I want to tell you something first off. Congratulations, because you guys did the unimaginable. Your association was partially responsible for electing the new mayor of San Jose, Matt Mahan. And I can honestly say, without the feet on the ground, without your contributions, without your efforts, talking to your friends and neighbors, the results would probably have been different. So congratulations to you and thank you for your engagement in this race. I'm looking at people who spent hours and hours and hours, Jen, looking at you specifically, volunteering for us. And I just want to thank all of you who did that, because there's a huge difference in the candidates that we were discussing in this election. One was not necessarily inclined to help us with property rights, with anything that's important in your industry to lay the groundwork for a easy transaction. The other candidate who won, Matt Mahan, is very good on property rights. He's very good in our industry, and he's going to make it much easier for you to conduct business. And we need that right now. So thank you very much for your efforts. I wanted to talk a little bit about the results of the election and what just happened, and then the call for action that we're doing at the moment, why you got that text from me. So the results of this election resulted in 2 vacant seats, 8 and 10. Matt's going to vacate his seat to become mayor, and Sylvia Reyes is going to vacate her seat to become supervisor. So in this situation, we have 2 open seats. Those 2 open seats need to be filled by people who will represent the constituents in those districts, the residents in those districts. The city council would like to appoint people for those 2 seats. They would like to appoint people who might not represent or reflect the views of the residents of those 2 districts. So we're opposed to that. We're opposed to appointments because, let me explain it this way. If the city council members, all of whom endorsed Cindy Chavez, saw that so differently than the voters, should they be allowed to appoint the replacement for those 2 districts? No, they got it wrong. I don't think that they're the correct people to select the next 2 council members for 8 and 10. I think it needs to go to a vote. However, here's why it's interesting. It's interesting because 8 and 10 are 2 districts, but who's voting on a special election? Everyone, right? So how do we create interest for the other 8 council members? It's from people like you who live in those districts and say, hey, I want my representative to give these guys the right to vote. That's how we're going to do it. So it's going to require, that's why we're engaging in this little mini battle. It's because it's hard. It's a very complicated issue, and it's hard to get representation for 2 districts whose electeds are leaving. Everyone else needs to understand, everyone else on council needs to understand how important it is to call a special election so the voters can decide who represents them, not the elected officials. Okay. So that's why you're getting emails from me. That's why you're getting texts from me. That's why you're getting, the requests that I've made to send an email. Please take those requests seriously. Send that email off. It's really important that we do this. We're going to show up on Monday, this upcoming Monday at City Hall at 5 p.m. You should see that. You'll get an email tomorrow afternoon, I think about 4 o'clock. It's going to give you the address. It's going to give you some information after you do your call for action. Your call for action is just sending that email. It's very simple. I've written a few different bodies of the email. You just pick the one you like and send it off to, it will go straight to the council member. Okay. So after you do that, it will show you when and where, but it's City Hall, 5 p.m. on Monday. This is when the decision will be made as to whether there's a special election or an appointment. And it's a very important decision. As you know, we just fought like crazy to get the right mayor in and then Biendone in district number 7. That was a huge fight for those 2 seats. Well, this is 2 more seats. so that you can understand how important this is. So please pay attention to that. And I just want to thank all of you. You have incredible leadership here. You have an incredible board. You have an incredible president and a phenomenal CEO who is so dedicated to supporting our government affairs department. I want to thank you, and I want to just recognize that you guys have tremendous leadership here in this association, and we're all very fortunate because there are others around us that are not quite as fortunate as we are to have such tremendous leadership. And now I'm going to give it back to our leader.
So Gina, on Monday, can anybody attend, even if they're not a San Jose citizen or a voter in any of these districts?
Okay, so Lisa is the perfect person for me because Lisa lives down in
South County.
South County, and she has done more volunteering, more supporting of our candidates in San Jose and elsewhere than probably anyone else. So yes, you absolutely can show up. Absolutely. The more the merrier, honestly. We need to get bodies there. We need to show them that we really, really want this to happen. It's complicated, and that's why it's so important to get people there. So yes, anybody can attend.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Gina. And complicated is just, this whole political thing is so complicated, and thank God we have Gina to help us through it. And all of you guys can get involved. So